welcome to MS ESL English. Today we're going to talk about most of the time, all of the time, and the whole time. This is something one of my students mentioned as something they noticed with a lot of their speaking partners was a challenge. And I have also noticed it with a lot of my students from all over the world. This is a common challenge. So I wanted to look at it, but in the process of looking at it, I realized this is not awfully simple. Going into this knowing that this is a little bit confusing, no, strike that. This is a lot confusing. This is super duper confusing and not simple. And even my Bible, which for any English teacher is Michael Swan's Practical English Usage, which is a astoundingly full book of grammar. Even my Bible doesn't really help very much with this. So, going into this with full disclosure that I'm trying my best to make it simple, but it's not a simple thing. I will try to explain this whole scenario. And if by the end you're even more confused than you were at the beginning, let me know. And I will go back to the drawing board. Ooh, full of idioms today. I will go back to the drawing board and have another go at trying to understand and figure out how I can explain this better. If you find yourself saying something and going, is this right? I don't know. Please email me that sentence that you said and you weren't sure about. I'll build a class around that, and hopefully that will clarify things a little for you. Two things I want to clarify before we go into this, and what I'll do is I'll put a bunch of links in the blog so you can find other written definitions and places to look for this. So the first thing is determiners. A determiner is a word placed in front of a noun to specify a quantity or to clarify what or who the noun refers to. Okay, rewind and listen to that again. Determiners can be articles, so the, a demonstrative, this, that, a possessive, my, your, or a quantifier, many, most. Today we're mostly talking about articles and maybe one or two quantifiers as determiners. So when we put this in a sentence, what we're looking at is I watch TV all the time. So the in that sentence, I watch TV all the time, the is the determiner. Okay, so we've got the noun of time and the is the determiner. The second thing is countable and uncountable nouns. You'll learn this at school, you know it inside out. Countable, things that we can count or are relatively easy to count. There aren't many apples left. How many? There's only 6 apples. Countable. Have you got any rice? Yes. How much do you want? Uncountable. Okay, and it's very common for us to be able to make an uncountable noun into a countable noun. How many bags of rice do you want? 6 bags of rice. Now it's countable. But those uncountables, we have to put them into a unit to be able to count them. So things like time, money, water, rice, it's possible to count them, but we have to break them into a unit. For example, 6 glasses of water, 2 hours, 13 pounds. Often when we talk about time and money, it's quite general. We're talking about either the vast swathe of time or an undetermined amount of time. So it's quite generalized. So it's often in that case uncountable, lots of time, all summer, most of the year. So uncountable. So that's really what we're looking at today. Uncountable with a determiner. Let's start with all. All is often used before uncountable and plural nouns. So we might say all the time. So we've got all, we've got our determiner, and we've got our noun, all the time. And in this case, time is uncountable. Quite often we leave out the determiner. So this is a tricky part when it comes to all. And my Bible was no use whatsoever talking about all day, all night, all afternoon. it's pretty common for us to leave out the determiner. Why? And that's where my Bible failed me. It just said, sometimes we leave it out. Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael Swan. For the first time ever, he let me down. There is no reason. Welcome to English. I apologize for my language. Here it is, yet another example of English having a whole load of rules and then us going, nah, let's not bother for that one, with no reason at all. So, sometimes we say all day without the determiner. All the day then becomes incorrect. So when we talk about time, most of the time, all of the time, the whole time. So with most, we can use it without of and the. But it's usually when we're talking about the majority of something. So for example, I can say, instead of the majority of children like ice cream, I can say most children like ice cream. No of, no the. But when we're talking about time, even though it's a majority situation, we almost always need both of and the. Most of the time, I have pizza for dinner, meaning commonly or often, I have pizza for dinner. All the time and the whole time basically mean the same thing. However, and there's always a however with every turn. However, you often find that the situation determines which is the best fit. So sometimes they don't mean the same thing, and sometimes they do mean the same thing. I'm going to give you some examples of both. For example, if I want to say I watch TV very often, I could say I watch TV all the time. Okay, so I've got my determiner and I've got my noun all the time. But I watch TV the whole time doesn't work. Because I watch TV all the time means in general, in my life, often I am watching TV. Whereas if I say I watch TV the whole time, I'm talking about a specific whole time, a piece of time. For example, if the parents go out shopping, when they come home, they might ask their teenager, what did you do while we were gone? And the teenager might say, I watched TV the whole time. So in this situation, the parents were only gone for 2 hours and the teenager watched TV the whole time. So we know how much time they're talking about. It's a specified amount of time. So for that situation, all the time doesn't work because it's not a specific enough chunk of time. How about, do you have to carry that bag everywhere? Yes, I need it with me all of the time. So in this all of the time, we have the of and the determiner. That's annoying. So by using the determiner and of, we mean constantly. And by using of specifically, we're really emphasizing that it's constant. Maybe there's something really important like an inhaler or something for bee stings, whatever. Something really important is in that bag and you need to have it with you at all times. So all of the time. We can just say all the time without the of. It still works in this situation. Yes, I need it with me all the time. It still works. It's not as strong as all of the time. But grammatically, both of them are okay. But sometimes when we're trying to emphasize something that will keep happening, we might drop the. That's annoying. So for example, I was up all night. Meaning I was awake, I couldn't sleep, I was up all night. We don't say I was up all of the night. So this is one of those situations that my Bible let me down for. It doesn't explain why, but sometimes native speakers don't put a the. And when we don't put a the, it's just wrong to put it there. And this is one of those times. I was up all night, not all of the night. In this case, we can also use the whole night to mean the same thing. So I was up all night and I was up the whole night, so we need the determiner for that one, are exactly the same. But we can't say I was up all of the night. That doesn't work. Okay? Like, that's not confusing at all. Let me give you a few more examples. Correct, I was gardening all day. Incorrect. I was gardening all the day. So in this situation, we don't need the determiner, the. How often do you watch TV? All the time. This time, we do need the determiner. It doesn't work without it. And it's pretty common in native speakers, if you ask how often do you do something, for them to have a whole sentence being all the time is pretty common. All the time, meaning very often, very regularly. I spent all night looking for you. So this time we're emphasizing that it was all of that time, the whole night looking for you. And in this case, when we don't put the, we can use the whole. So I spent all night looking for you. I spent the whole night looking for you, because we have a specific amount of time, one night. So we can use both of them. Most of the time, I just eat sandwiches. We've got of and the in that one, most of the time. Meaning that pretty regularly, I don't bother to have anything different other than sandwiches for lunch. This is a pretty common meal for lunch. In this case, most of time I eat sandwiches doesn't work. Okay, we need a lot more grammar. Most of the time, so we need the determiner and the of, I just eat sandwiches. Okay, let's try another couple. I spent the whole day gardening. Okay, so I've got my piece of time. The whole day, one day, I spent the whole day gardening. I need my determiner for the whole. In pretty much every case, if we're using whole something, whole day, whole night, we need the. So that's one that's pretty predictable. You're going to need the determiner when we use it. Okay, let's look at one for work. If your wife wants to know, why didn't you pick up the phone during the day? Or your husband, anybody, wife, husband, spousal partner, whatever. They want to know, why didn't you pick up the phone? I was calling you all day. You could say, I was in meetings for the whole day. All right, I got options here. I was in meetings for the whole day. So we've got for and the. Or, I was in meetings the whole day. No of. Meaning is exactly the same. For the whole day, both exactly the same. Both of them are giving us a determined amount of time. I was in meetings all day. That's it. It's telling us the whole day. We don't need the. I was in meetings the whole time. So in this case, the time period we're talking about has been determined in the question that was asked, why didn't you pick up the phone all day? And the answer is, I was in meetings the whole time. So sometimes we use the whole time because we've already determined how much time came before, and now we're referring back to that in the whole time. Okay, I know. I apologize for my language. I know this is super confusing because it's super confusing for me too. For most native speakers, this kind of stuff really comes down to what sounds right to us. I can absolutely guarantee you that a native speaker who's never had any training in ESL will have no clue why this happens, and they have never heard the word determiner as referred to a the. I promise you that. Think of your own language. It's exactly the same for that. You know where it fits because that feels right. That sounds right to you. It's exactly the same. So for that reason, listening and reading practice is really valuable for you because it gets your brain used to the common structures and what sounds right. In actual fact, you don't even have to understand what you're listening to. As long as your brain is listening, you could be washing dishes, driving your car, whatever you like. As long as your brain is listening to the English, it's getting used to the structures and it's becoming more familiar with them. So it gets easier for you to identify what sounds right and what doesn't sound right when you say it yourself. I will put the examples that I've talked about today and some of the references for more information in the blog, as I mentioned. If you say something and you think, that sounds weird, is it right, is it wrong, what was Emma talking about last week, I can't remember, try and write down your sentence and send it in to me, and we'll revisit this. We'll come back to it and take another look, okay? I'm quite happy to look at this as many times as it takes me to figure out what the heck is going on. It's very confusing. I hope this has made this slightly more understandable for you. If not, go and have a look at the blog. Once you see all of the examples, hopefully that will make it easier. Thank you for tuning in. This is Emma's ESL English. You can send your ESL questions to emmaseSLenglish@gmail.com, or you can head over to the blog at www.emmaseSLenglish.com. And each time I put a podcast up, there's a coordinating blog to give you the stuff written down, basically. All right. If this has been useful for you, thank goodness. And please share it with your friends. And if it hasn't, email me. We'll go at it a second time. I look forward to talking to you next time. Bye!